checking in with me, seeing how I'm doing.
Why? Or like, how did it go?
It went
4 weeks, viewers of 90 Day Fiancé watched a relationship built on love, excitement, and a completely different idea of what commitment means. But then came the night that changed everything. A moment where Josh wasn't hearing about Katie's behavior from someone else. He was standing right there watching it happen. And suddenly, the question wasn't just, can Josh accept Katie for who she is? The real question became, how many times can someone forgive the same thing before forgiveness starts to feel like permission? Because behind the cameras, behind the arguments, and behind the viral reactions, there was a much deeper conflict happening. Two people who clearly cared about each other, but who seemed to have completely different definitions of boundaries, loyalty, and what a future together should look like. Katie Norbo and Josh Atkins entered season 12 of 90 Day Fiancé as a couple viewers immediately noticed. Katie was described as spontaneous and free-spirited, while Josh appeared much more reserved and cautious. But early on, the biggest challenge in their relationship became Katie's openly discussed habit of becoming physically affectionate with friends and other people, especially in certain social situations. And for Josh, this wasn't just about one night. It was about trust. Because when someone you love tells you, "This is just who I am," there are two possible reactions. You either accept it, or you wonder if accepting it means ignoring your own feelings. That tension became the emotional center of their storyline. Before this moment exploded online, there were already warning signs. Josh had made a major life change to be with Katie. He was leaving behind his life in the UK and trying to build something new in America. But instead of a smooth beginning, the couple quickly found themselves dealing with disagreements about lifestyle choices, finances, and expectations for their future. And this is where their story became more complicated than a simple good person versus bad person debate. Because relationships rarely fall apart from one single moment. Usually, it's the small moments that reveal the biggest problems. A comment, a disagreement, a boundary crossed, a promise that wasn't kept. Then, suddenly, one night becomes the moment where everything people were worried about finally becomes visible. At Katie's birthday celebration, the situation reached a breaking point. According to reports about the episode, Josh witnessed Katie interacting with other men in a way that made him uncomfortable, including attempts at kissing and flirting that challenged the boundaries they had discussed. For viewers watching at home, the scene created an immediate divide. Some fans argued that Katie was simply being herself, someone with a very outgoing personality who struggles with impulse control. Others felt Josh was being asked to tolerate behavior that would hurt almost anyone in a committed relationship. And somewhere in the middle was the hardest question. If a problem has an obvious solution, why does it keep happening? Because from the outside, many viewers saw what looked like a simple fix. Set boundaries, respect those boundaries, change the situation, move forward. But human behavior is rarely that simple. The reason this storyline connected with so many viewers is because it touched a much bigger conversation. Where does being free-spirited end? And where does hurting your partner begin? Can someone change a habit because they love someone? Or does asking someone to change mean you never accepted them in the first place? Those questions are why the internet started debating this couple so intensely. Some viewers sympathized with Josh, saying he was facing a painful reality after making sacrifices for the relationship. Others argued that Katie was being judged too harshly, and that the audience did not know the full story behind their private relationship. The cameras show moments, but relationships happen between those moments. And that's what makes the story far more complicated than a reality TV argument. Because behind the drama is a real emotional conflict. One person trying to feel accepted, another person trying to feel respected, and both wondering if love is enough when two people want completely different versions of commitment. But the biggest question still remains, was this just one bad night? Or was this the moment Josh finally saw the relationship exactly as it was? The most difficult moments in a relationship are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes it is the silence afterward. The look on someone's face when they realize the conversation they've been avoiding is finally happening. And for Josh, That moment appeared to be about something bigger than one party, one decision, or one uncomfortable interaction. It was about a question many couples face but rarely admit. Can love survive when two people have completely different ideas of what respect looks like? Because from the outside, fans saw a couple with chemistry. They saw laughter. They saw attraction. They saw two people who genuinely seemed interested in building something. But as their story unfolded, viewers started noticing that the biggest challenge wasn't distance, culture, or paperwork. It was compatibility. Katie's personality became one of the biggest talking points of the season. She presented herself as someone who enjoys freedom, social connections, and living in the moment. To some viewers, that made her refreshing. They saw someone who was not afraid to be herself. But for others, especially viewers who connected with Josh's perspective, the issue was not personality. It was boundaries. And that difference became the entire argument. Because two people can look at the exact same situation and see two completely different things. One person sees, nothing serious happened. The other person feels, something important was ignored. And that emotional gap is where relationships often become fragile. Josh's position became more complicated because he was not just reacting as a boyfriend. He was someone who had already invested emotionally into the relationship. But what happens when the person you imagine that future with keeps showing you a version of themselves that doesn't match the future you created in your mind? That is the conflict viewers began debating. Not whether Katie was good or bad. Not whether Josh was right or wrong. But whether two people can love each other while wanting completely different rules for the relationship. Online reactions quickly became divided. Some fans criticized Josh, arguing that he knew Katie's personality before committing and should not expect her to become a different person. Their argument was simple. You cannot fall in love with someone's energy and then punish them for having that energy. But other viewers pushed back. They argued that relationships are not just about accepting everything. They are about communication. They are about understanding what makes your partner uncomfortable. They questioned whether Josh was being asked to compromise too much. The debate spread across social media, with fans discussing whether Katie's behavior was harmless fun or a sign of deeper relationship problems. And this is where reality television becomes complicated. The audience sees a few hours of edited footage. The couple lives the entire experience. There are conversations we never see. Private apologies, private disagreements, private moments where people decide whether something matters enough to fight for. That is why many relationship experts often say the real issue is not the action itself. It is the meaning behind the action. A habit can be small to one person, but if that habit makes the other person feel unsafe or unheard, suddenly it becomes much bigger. For Josh and Katie, the pressure was increasing. Because a relationship on 90 Day Fiancé is not only about love, it comes with a deadline, a future decision, a life-changing commitment. The couple has to answer questions that many people avoid for years. Are we actually compatible? Can we solve problems together? Are we building something real? Or are we trying to force two different lifestyles into one relationship? And the biggest twist in this story may not be what happened at the party. It may be what happens after. Because one emotional moment can reveal a problem, but the response afterward reveals the relationship. Does someone listen? Does someone adjust? Does someone decide the relationship is worth changing for? Or does everyone simply defend their own side? That is the part fans are waiting to see. Because the real test was never about one habit. The real test was whether two people with different views of love could find the same future. After the argument, after the uncomfortable moments, after fans picked sides online, the biggest question remained unanswered. What happens when the cameras stop rolling? Because reality TV can capture a conflict, but it cannot show every conversation that happens after. It cannot fully show the emotions when two people are alone, trying to decide if the person standing across from them is still the person they want beside them. And that is where Josh and Katie's story becomes more complicated. Because the issue was never only about what happened. It was about what the moment represented. For Josh, the situation appeared to raise concerns about trust and long-term stability. When someone is preparing to build a future with another person, small moments can sometimes feel much bigger. A single action can become a symbol of, will my feelings matter later? Will my boundaries be respected? Can I depend on this person when life gets harder? Those questions are not about one night. They are about the future. But supporters of Katie's perspective saw another side of the story. They argued that personality differences do not automatically mean someone does not care. Some people are naturally more outgoing. Some people are more physically expressive. Some people show affection differently. And supporters believe the challenge is not forcing one person to completely change, but finding a balance where both people feel comfortable. Because there is a major difference between changing who someone is and learning how to love someone better. This is why the storyline created so much conversation among viewers. It touched on a debate that exists far beyond reality television. How much should someone change for love? Every relationship has adjustments. Every relationship requires compromise. But the difficult question is where the line is. At what point does compromise become losing yourself? And at what point does being yourself become ignoring the person you claim to love? That is the emotional battle at the center of the story. The entertainment industry has seen this pattern many times. Reality TV couples often become symbols for larger conversations. One couple's argument becomes thousands of viewers discussing their own relationships. Fans start asking, would I accept this? Would I walk away? Am I being too strict? Am I ignoring red flags? That is why moments like this spread, not because everyone knows the couple personally, but because people recognize pieces of their own lives inside the drama. The online reaction also created another layer. Some viewers became frustrated with what they saw as repeated conflict. They questioned whether the couple was facing a temporary misunderstanding or a deeper compatibility issue. Others believed the audience was judging too quickly and that relationships cannot be measured from edited scenes alone. Both sides raised an important point. A few minutes on television can create a strong opinion, but a real relationship is built through thousands of unseen moments. And then comes the question that could define the future of this relationship. Is the problem actually the habit, or is the problem that Josh and Katie see commitment differently? Because if two people agree on what love means, many problems can be solved. But when two people have different definitions of respect, loyalty, and freedom, even a small disagreement can become a much bigger storm. The future of Josh and Katie depends on something viewers cannot predict. For Josh, the challenge seemed to be about feeling secure. When someone moves their life around for another person, expectations naturally become stronger. The sacrifices feel bigger. The future feels more serious. And moments that might have been ignored before can suddenly feel impossible to overlook. Because when you're asking, is this the person I want to build my life with? Every decision starts carrying more weight. But from Katie's side, viewers also saw a person who did not appear to want to lose her identity. That created another difficult conversation. Because many relationships face this exact struggle. One person wants more structure. The other wants more freedom. One person feels love means changing certain behaviors. The other feels love means being accepted as they are. Neither side is always easy. Neither side is always simple. This is why the easy fix question became so interesting. Some fans looked at the situation and thought, why not just stop doing the thing that hurts your partner? But others asked a different question. If someone changes only because they are pressured, will that change actually last? Because a temporary solution is not always a real solution. A relationship cannot survive only through avoiding arguments. It survives when both people understand why something matters. And this is where many viewers started analyzing the bigger picture. They were not just watching a reality show moment. They were watching a test of communication. Can two people talk about uncomfortable things without becoming defensive? Can they hear each other without trying to win? Can they create boundaries that both people agree with? Those answers often decide whether relationships grow stronger or slowly fall apart. The social media debate around the couple also revealed something interesting about modern relationships. Fans were not only judging Katie or Josh, they were comparing the situation to their own experiences. Some viewers saw themselves in Josh. the person who feels like they are asking for basic respect. Others saw themselves in Katie, the person who feels judged for being different. That is why the conversation became emotional, because people were not only debating a TV couple, they were debating what love should look like. But there is another reality that comes with being on a show like 90 Day Fiancé. Every choice becomes public. Every argument becomes a discussion. Every mistake can become a viral moment. And once the audience forms an opinion, changing that opinion can be extremely difficult. A person can be reduced to one scene, one argument, one decision. Even when the full story is more complicated, the biggest question moving forward is not whether fans approve of them. It is whether Josh and Katie can find a version of the relationship where both people feel respected. Because the strongest relationships are not built when two people agree on everything. They are built when two people disagree and still choose to understand each other. Maybe the habit that everyone is talking about is only the surface. Maybe the real story is about trust. Maybe it is about expectations. Maybe it is about two people discovering that love alone does not answer every question. And that leaves one final mystery. After everything viewers have seen, will Josh and Katie adapt together? Or will this moment become the reason they realize they are moving in different directions? The most revealing moments in any relationship are not always the dramatic ones. Sometimes, it is the moment after the drama, the conversation nobody sees, the decision made when there is no audience watching. Because that is where the future of a relationship is actually decided. And for Josh and Katie, the biggest challenge may not be proving who is right or wrong. It may be deciding whether they can understand each other before the differences become impossible to ignore. Reality television often creates a simple story, a hero, a problem, a conflict, a resolution. But real relationships do not work like that. There are usually two people with their own fears, their own backgrounds, and their own idea of what love is supposed to look like. That is what made viewers divided. Some people watched and thought Josh was trying to protect the relationship. Others watched and thought Katie was being unfairly judged for being herself. The truth is, relationships